Good to go.
So welcome, I'm Nikki and this is my colleague Jackie, and we are both diabetes specialist nurses at Royal Bournemouth Hospital, and we have been working as part of the Compassion project. So that's a project looking at people with type 1 diabetes and disordered eating for about 3 years, would you say, Jackie?
Yeah.
And we're really enjoying this part of our role.
So thank you so much for asking us to come along and be with you this evening. It's a real privilege for us. And what we thought we'd do, we weren't quite sure how to pitch it because I know some of you come from all different areas of the country. So we thought, forgive us, but we thought we'd start back at the beginning about the role of insulin and then build up on that. So we thought about, although you all have type 1 diabetes, so you're well versed with insulin probably, we do find occasionally some people actually don't quite know what insulin does and how it fits in with what goes on in the body. So one of the things is just thinking about that really important hormone called insulin. Insulin, a hormone which is essential to life. And it's produced by the pancreas. The pancreas does all sorts of other fancy jobs, but one of its jobs is to produce the hormone insulin. And the hormone insulin is used as a storage of energy, and it allows the body to use energy in the first place as well. But it also has some other little important jobs, and that's the use of lipids. Those are the things like cholesterol in the body, and also the regulation of hormones and other enzymes. And we've got lots of enzymes and things in the body that keep us well and they keep us healthy. So I'm sure some of you probably have heard that it's 100 years of insulin, Banting and Best, and so we're all very grateful for insulin. But for people with TIDE, it can present a different sort of set of challenges, and that's what we hope to sort of demystify today. So going back to type 1 diabetes, a quick reminder of what it is, what happens. So the body needs to eat food. Food is where we get our body's main energy source, and carbohydrates these days seem to have a very bad name, but actually carbohydrates are a really important, absolutely essential part of a healthy, balanced diet in the right amounts and proportions. So what happens is when we eat our food, that food is broken down into glucose, those little yellow squares on the slide there. That glucose then goes into the bloodstream, and there's no point it staying in the bloodstream forever. What happens is that glucose needs to get into all the cells to give the cells energy to allow them to do their important little jobs. So the human body is made up of millions and millions and millions of cells, and all of those cells need glucose as their main energy source. So that's what it's showing there. Now, the role of insulin is that for somebody without diabetes, they don't even have to think about it. Their pancreas releases insulin into the bloodstream, and insulin acts a little bit like a key, and it opens the lock on the cell, opens the cell door nice and wide, and allows the glucose to be moved into the cell to give us energy, keep us well and healthy. Of course, with type 1 diabetes, the person doesn't make their own insulin anymore. But fortunately, they can replace it with injected insulin or insulin via a pump. And really, it's learning about how much insulin the body needs. But the process is much the same, other than the body has to have a constant supply of insulin, either injected or via a pump. So when people are diagnosed with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, we always encourage them to try and sort of think of this special little organ, this pancreas, and they begin to think like their pancreas, think how much insulin their body might need. And there's a lot of education that goes behind it, and sometimes that education can feel enormously overwhelming. But essentially, everybody needs a background low level of insulin trickling along day and night, whether we're eating or whether we're not eating. We always need a constant supply of background insulin. And then on top of that, depending on the types of food we eat and how much carbohydrate is in the food, we need to match that up with an appropriate amount of mealtime insulin or a pump. People learn the functions on the pump to replicate what the pancreas will be doing. So we all need background insulin all the time, never a time that we don't need background insulin. And in addition, a little bit of extra top up insulin with food, or if the glucose level does go high, which could be various reasons we won't go into today. So some of the main symptoms of a high glucose level, I'm sure you don't really need me to point this out, but you know, some of the main symptoms are that you can feel enormously thirsty. Sometimes it can be overwhelming and lead to a very, very dry mouth, very dry tongue. And it makes you wee a lot when you haven't got enough insulin and your glucose levels are high. And of course, the body absolutely needs to be in harmony. The body does not function well in the long term when the body is dry, because the body needs fluid to, again, allow it to do all its important little jobs in harmony with one another. And some people can sort of sense that they have a sort of, it's a, what might be termed as an artificial way of losing weight, and not a helpful or healthy way for the body to be in balance with each other.
So what happens when the body doesn't have enough insulin? So we know, as Jackie said, that insulin is essential to provide the cells with their energy. So in its absence, the body looks for an alternative energy source. And it does use muscles and the fat stores to provide that energy. So the byproduct of this is the production of ketones, which are harmful, and they can cause the blood to become acidic. And this is life-threatening, and that's when people end up with DKA, so diabetic ketoacidosis. So what people find is that at diagnosis, they might have noticed this unhealthy rapid weight loss, and that's because the body isn't able to use the glucose consumed, and it's using that alternative source. So it's, although it's a weight loss, it's unhealthy. So when you start insulin treatment, it helps that body restore to its natural healthy state, that balance that it needs to be. And that can lead to that really unhelpful association right from the off there between insulin and weight gain, when actually it's not the insulin that's causing the weight gain, it's letting the body do what it needs to do and return itself to where it should be. The other thing that people sometimes notice is what we sometimes call insulin edema. And that's as the body restores itself, there may be some fluid retention where it's balancing out again. And this is temporary and it will resolve. But we recognise that for somebody with type 1 diabetes and disordered eating, it can be really difficult and really challenging time when you're doing what you need to do, giving that insulin, and then you're seeing that weight gain, which can be concerning, but it is temporary and it will resolve. And then just our final little slide is we really want to reiterate that insulin does not equal fat. You need insulin, it's an essential hormone to keep you well. And then we just like to really ask if anyone's got any questions.
I have questions. So when your insulin requirements increase, like when the weather's cold or when you're ill, what impact does that have on your what impact does that have on your body? Does it mean that you'll gain weight because you are taking more insulin?
So what a great question. That really is such a good question. And the answer to that is in a word is no. So when the body is ill, for example, what happens is the body starts to repair itself. And what happens is the body throws out all sorts of hormones that help the body repair itself. There are other things as well, like cortisol and all sorts of other things. And all of these things are circulating around the body to help it repair itself. When this happens, the glucose levels are always pushed up. They are always higher than usual. And the higher than usual glucose levels in response to illness, for example, always mean you need more insulin. But the extra insulin you have does not equal weight gain. The weight remains the same, assuming other things in your life are the same. It does not equal weight gain. You're purely doing what somebody without type 1 diabetes, when their body is ill, all those same hormones are released to help repair the body. And for example, I don't have type 1 diabetes, but my body's insulin requirements will increase in line with my body trying to repair itself. And likewise, I won't put on insulin weight because my body is producing more insulin. It's a normal, we call it a physiological, give it a fancy term, but it's a normal response to what your body does, and it does not equal gaining weight. No, but thank you for that. That's such a good question. Thanks. Did that answer it?
Yeah, thank you for explaining. So we are basically just doing manually what everyone else's body would do naturally.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. But we make it sound simple, don't we? And you know better than anyone, everyone with type 1 diabetes does. It is about learning how to do that. But yes, in effect, yes, you're learning how to mimic what your pancreas would be doing in terms of releasing insulin. Yeah.
And also like teaching ourselves that more insulin does not equal a bad thing. It's just our body needs.
Yeah.
And another question that we had as well was around what the role of insulin is with enzymes and lipids.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes, of course. So what the role of insulin is with enzymes and lipids?
Oh, lipids, yeah. No, that's a good question as well. So so many things in the body work in harmony with other things, and insulin is just one of the many things that helps the body use other things, like some enzymes in the body, like some hormones in the body, like it helps with lipid production and so on. So it's not the only thing that's responsible for lipid, which are things like cholesterol, but it just plays one little part. You know, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, great big jigsaw puzzle, that's the body, and insulin plays its little part. Without it, the body just doesn't function in harmony as well as it could or should do.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're on mute. It wouldn't be a call without that, would it? I have another question. Hang on, I've just written it down up there. Oh yeah, when someone is newly diagnosed or when someone's had DKA, like you said, there's this insulin edema. How long does that process take to like rectify itself? How long until your body returns to its you know, healthy weight and shape? Because it's so worrying for people. And when you say, oh, it's just temporary, like how long exactly is that? Or is it different for everybody? Or does it depend on how dehydrated you got in the first place?
Yeah, I think that's a good question as well, Nate. I think you're right, it is different for everybody, and it's difficult to put a timeline on that, and it will depend on what's gone on beforehand to the severity of it. And as you said, everybody's body is going to take a different time to rebalance itself. So yeah, I can't give you a definite answer for that. I think it varies, really. Have you got anything to add, Claire?
Yeah, and I'd also say, you know, I completely agree with what Nikki said, and partly it's going to depend on how little insulin your body has been trying to survive without. And if somebody isn't able to give their body quite what their body needs, there'll be less insulin edema. Whereas if somebody has been severely restricting their insulin and just has not got and hasn't had any for a while and hasn't got any, then probably you will see the edema will feel and be more marked, and potentially may take a bit longer. The bit longer, which is the bit you want to know, is how long's a piece of string. For some people, they say they haven't noticed any edema at all, and other people sort of Well, I don't know. What have we, I'm trying to think of people we've known. It's been maybe a couple of days, not
Yeah,
longer,
it's not-
not
yeah, I wouldn't
weeks
say
or
a long
months or
time,
anything,
yeah.
no. But severely lacking in insulin can affect bodily symptom, bodily functions, and can cause like edema at its you know, a really severe level of the brain, for example. So it kind of depends. Everybody's a bit different, but yeah, hard to put like Nikki said, it's hard to put an actual time on it.
Thanks for explaining.
Were there any other questions at all from anybody? I've got very noisy traffic coming by, so I'm just muting my mic on and off so it doesn't come through too much. I hope you're not hearing any of it. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the both of you for providing so much information and answering the questions in so much detail. It's been really valuable, so thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Like Jackie said, it's a privilege to be invited.
So it's a pleasure to
Yeah.
have you both.
Can I ask one more thing before you guys head off? When someone's had the belief system of insulin equals fat for a long time, how would you suggest that they like work on changing that? And what kind of things can we tell ourselves that it's a myth, and how can we replace it with facts? I'm not sure if I've asked the question right, but yeah, how would we go about changing our belief system?
The belief, you have to
Yeah.
change your behaviour, and then the thoughts come after the behaviour. So it's being brave and giving the insulin and proving that actually giving this insulin isn't making me gain weight.
Yeah.
Or it may restore you to your healthy weight, but it's not going to make you gain unhealthy weight. And it's trying it and then realizing that actually it isn't fact, that it isn't causing weight gain.
Yeah, like
that makes sense.
proving that. Yeah, it does. Like proving that thought false. Yeah, false. Yeah, it's like I can relate back to like anorexic thoughts and stuff when I just had to prove that eating disorder voice wrong by doing the opposite of what it told me to do, and then you do find out, oh yeah, the world didn't end, and
absolutely.
So yeah, that's good. And does it also have anything to do with like nourishing your brain with glucose to be able to healthily change your thought patterns?
Yeah, so I think the more starved your brain is of glucose, the harder it is to have helpful thoughts. The more starved it is, the unhelpful thoughts gather momentum. So getting that glucose to your brain, you're able to think more clearly and realise that actually it isn't fact.
And actually, just on that point, you know, the brain is the one organ in the body that is entirely dependent on a constant trickle of glucose. It can't use all sorts of other sources of energy. It is completely reliant on glucose. So it is so important, just as Nikki said, to actually have that, you know, glucose, or have that foods that contain carbs, which are turned into glucose. But it's, you know, about balance.
And is it true that the brain uses 70% of the glucose that we consume?
I don't know. How much? What was that? Is it true that the brain...
I read somewhere that your brain uses 70% of the glucose that you consume.
Yeah, do you know, I can't say hand on heart, I know, but it is a lot. So I would think that sounds ballpark wise, yes. I can't exactly. But yes, it is somewhere, it uses a large proportion, yeah. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just had to sneak that one more question in.
yeah, it's interesting. Thank you, Nate.
We really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you so much for having us. Thank you. Shall we log off now?
Yes, please. And we can stop the recording, Beth/Jess, if that's okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
You can do your dance now. We're not recording it.